So hi guys, it's great to see you. This is again a continuation of our Space Command convention, and you are now part of the Space Command family, and it's very exciting. And I'm Mark Zickery, of course. Everybody knows who I am. I was actually running at the park this morning wearing a Space Command t-shirt, and someone said, "Space Command, you're the guy."
Yes.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So, but so we're running a Kickstarter campaign to continue shooting. That's going well. One of our investors stepped up and threw some more money our way yesterday, so we can keep the lights on to the studio. So we're going to be shooting a lot more. And of course, David, you play Jack Cameron's son, Ed. And the fun part in Ripple Effect is the three actors play that role. There's the baby, then there's you, and then there's J.G. Hertzler as an old man. So you get to see how this guy really goes to hell.
Yeah.
And but it's fun. It's really fun. And then of course, Jakob, you are the Space Command equivalent of Boyhood, where where you were a little kid when we shot the scene in Redemption, and which is terrific. And now you're older. You're a teenager, and we could have you as an older character in Ripple Effect with Barbara Bain, which was really super cool. And and then I don't know if you watched Ripple Effect, but Dave Edison actually in the scene with Armin Shimmerman did a painting of you with a mustache as an older man. And so so we'll see what the future brings in terms of playing that role in the next few years. We'll see what happens. But so why don't we start by each of you talking about how you came, first of all, to hear about Space Command, to be in it. Why don't we start with you, Jakob, because you're in the pilot.
Yeah, so it was back in 2014, and I was part of a sci-fi festival called Sci-Fest, and it was the first ever one, and it was like a sci-fi theater type thing. And my contact info got exchanged with someone that worked in Space Command, and they said they needed a boy that was around my age to be in a couple scenes. And I was like, hey, when I heard it was like called Space Command, I was like, dude, that sounds awesome just from the name. I was a big sci-fi geek back then, and as I am now. So I auditioned for the role, and I guess you liked me. Yeah,
no, it's great. And the funny part is that as Elaine and I are editing the show over a period of years, we look at you, we look at our actors much more than you guys ever look at us, because you're on the big screen. We're with us tweaking all of those scenes. And it was really amazing in the scene with you playing Odin when Bob Picardo was repairing Doug Jones, because Ryan Husk, who's an adult, was the off-screen person reading the lines to Bob Picardo and Doug Jones. And so when we finally were able to drop you into those shots, it completely pulled the scene together, and all of a sudden you see this little kid. And of course, your character, more than anyone else in that pilot, is the most fucked over. I mean, you just really get the short end of the stick, and so that's really, really fun. And you were great at crying and all those things. Elaine felt really bad, but then when it was like cut, you were like all smiles, and she was relieved that she hadn't permanently traumatized you.
Yeah.
So. Yes, exactly. Now, were you surprised when we contacted you all this time later and said, "Hey, we got another scene for you"?
Yeah, well, I was, because I had thought maybe that was because I knew there was more for Odin.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that I was gonna be coming back for it. And when I was told I was gonna come back, I was like, "Wait, this is exciting! I'm gonna be back in that role that I did before," and it brought all these memories back.
Yes, it's fun. And, and again, it's an evolving storyline. So, I knew what happened. Well, what happens to Odin. He goes to live with his aunt on Europa, which is one of the outer moons, and she's very harsh. And so I was playing with a lot of different ways to have that relationship work. And then when I met Barbara Bain, who I, grew up with watching her in Mission Impossible and Space 1999, and she's in another project of ours called Sweet Haven, that I'm creating with Rockne O'Bannon, who created Farscape. And but I thought she'd be great as the aunt, and of course she's terrific in that scene. After you say, "I'm being raised by this cold aunt," and then you see her and she's like, "Holy cow!" I don't know. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think I mean it blew me away watching getting to watch that and getting to see that maybe one day I'll get to work for it. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really great to have the two of you like that way. And again, with this episode, it grew. Well, initially it was just going to be like a vignette and maybe be like 15, 20 minutes. And then it became an hour. Then it became 2 hours as more and more of our actors became available. And as we started to see the connective tissue that could tell this multi-generational story. So it was
Yeah.
super fun. So now going to you, David. So how did you get involved in Space Command other than church?
First of all, I got to say that Jakob, your performance is amazing. Yeah, I love your work. Great work. And a really funny story, actually. Living like that creative life of having a job here, writing music there, working in a show here. I work at a restaurant as well. And there was one day I remember so vividly that I was so busy, but I had this sweetest couple that I served. And it was Mark and Elaine. And I was just serving at the restaurant, and I served you guys brunch. And we had the best conversation, the most meaningful conversation. I remember all I wanted to do was continue to talk to you guys, but I was so busy. And then lo and behold, we kept on running into each other at the restaurant, and we stayed in touch, and a role came up and you gave me a call, and I was just thrilled to be a part of it. And it's been so awesome to be able to do that.
Well, the fun part is that, of course, here in LA, everyone, every waiter in the city is either a writer or an actor or both. And
right.
So you can pretty much say to any waiter or waitress, how's the auditions coming or whatever, and or how's the script coming, and they'll always say, well, Paramount's looking at it now or whatever. And of course, I knew from the beginning that Space Command was going to be a multi-generational show, that it was going to cover 180 years. And but also I'm always open to possibility. And when I saw you bore such a strong resemblance to Ethan McDowell and Sarah Marafino, because they're both these blonde, people. It was like you could really be their son. So that's when I said to you, are you an actor? And you said yes. And I said to Elaine, well, let's find out if he can act, And so then I checked out your reel and your website. And it was like, oh, okay, this is cool. I liked your work. And so then when Ripple Effect came about, I sent you the scene, and you did a great job. So that was, and then we shipped you the uniform, and bang, you're on a ship bound for Jupiter.
And there it was.
Yeah, it was fun. Now, but it's also interesting because you haven't physically met Ethan or Sarah yet, so I mean, so it was fun to be putting all those pieces together. So if you want to talk about the process of coming into this and your thoughts about it and all that, that'd be great.
Yeah, totally. Just like as my character.
Yeah, and also just being in this. I mean, Ripple Effect is a very unusual episode because, if you look at the pilot, the first hour of Space Command, or the later episodes we're doing, or even the prequel, they're much more action-packed.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't monologues, and
right.
And in this episode, because it was during the pandemic, that gave us the opportunity to have the actors actually addressing the camera and either talking to their dad or talking to the the future or whatever, And so that was a really different kind of way of doing things. So yeah, just talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely wonderful, and what a beautiful way to tell a story. What a beautiful way to bring something to light.
Yeah.
I loved specifically being able to work with the long monologue, being able to really chew on that meat there.
Yeah.
And it was just, for me, acting, storytelling is so much of what is your relationship, what is your intention, and what is like your, what does it mean to you? For me, I always ask myself, like, why? And so going through this long monologue, not being a part of Space Command, was a really daunting task at first. And I was like, who is Odin Seconder? Like, who is my dad? Who am I talking to? What is happening? You know what I mean? And then like combing through the episode of all these monologues, putting the pieces together. And that's just what I love about acting. That's what I love about performing. It's just answering these questions that create a cohesive story.
Yes.
And so, first of all, I just love what you and Elaine are venturing to do, how you just are so dedicated to the story, so dedicated to being creative and popping out some beautiful artwork. And so then personally as an actor, it was fun to also bring that puzzle piece to the table.
Yes. Well, it's a super fun episode in the way, because one of the things I said to the audience when I posted this in the introduction, I said, some of this you're not going to understand until you see the entire first season, because these are, I knew that I was casting Armin Shimmerman, I knew I was casting Christina Moses, I knew where the story goes, and I've written almost all of the first season already. Elaine and I have, and so it was really fun to kind of jumpstart that a little bit, and particularly in Ripple Effect, we get to see you. We see your grandfather and your father and your mother, and all this tapestry of, oh, this is, and the whole episode is about parents and children, that's why it's called ripple effect. It's like down the generations, how that works. And for you, and also it's fun because Odin Sikander, it's like really this story is so much about how the Sikander family and the Kemmer family impact on each other over 2 centuries basically, and it's really fun because and the next episode's going to be once we finish shooting Forgiveness. So the first season's structured in 2-hour stories that then tell a larger story, and so after we shoot the second hour of Forgiveness, the next one is Great Solar War, and that's the one that both has Odin Sikander and has your character as well, Ed Kemmer, and that's a big space war story. I mean, a lot happens in that, and it's really really fun, and so that's what's coming down the pike, and and again, it's just really fun, and also one thing I should mention to you, Jacob, is that Brian McClure, who plays Lieutenant Bradbury, he's a lot older than he looks, and so that means that probably casting you as an adult version of that guy, we can probably get away with it. We'll play with it and see what we can do, but because Brian just played an 18-year-old, and he's 20 years older than that, so so we it's pretty fun how that in Ripple Effect, of course, he plays Lieutenant Bradbury, then he plays an older version of that character, then he plays like his grandson. And that scene, it's funny because we took that final scene in the episode is actually from his audition of that character in 2012. So he actually is 8 years younger in that scene. So pretty hilarious. So so I guess it's interesting, going back to you, Jacob, when you played the little boy, it was interesting because you were playing entirely against a green screen, right? I mean, you're not physically in any of the scenes with those other actors. So what was that like? Had you ever done anything like that before?
So I hadn't actually. This is my first. This was actually my first like sci-fi type role where I was actually working with a green screen. So it was fun. It was interesting. What you really have to do when you're using a green screen is you really have to I just imagined it all in my head. Is really what I did. I just imagined. This is what I do for a lot of my roles. Is I'll imagine that I'm actually there. That I'm actually the character. That I'm actually on a moon in Europa. That I'm actually. That I'm actually on Europa in this little bunker. That I'm actually, talking with my dad, and he's a hologram in front of me.
Yeah.
You really have to just like put yourself in the character's shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool being to work like with a green screen.
Yeah.
In the after.
I'll send you the second hour where you have another conversation with your dad when he's on the alien ship, and you're so plaintive. It's like, promise you'll come home. It's like, yeah, I promise. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, But it's like it's super fun. And but the funny thing is, because the first hour had 900 visual effect shots, and the second hour has 900 visual effect shots also, we're moving more and more toward practical sets where we don't have to endlessly spend years doing visual effects in post. And so we're actually building, a full alien ship, and we're building, so there's a lot more stuff that we're constructing now, and so that'll see that stuff in the Great Solar War as well. So there's tons of stuff coming up. So when you mentioned you really love science fiction, what kind of stuff do you like, or how did you get into science fiction?
As a kid, and this is really how I got into acting, was I really loved stories. And I love the stories with the acting, or with the action, I should say, and with a good plot line to it. So as a kid, I was into. I know my dad showed me like Star Wars, which was my first like, everyone watches Star Wars, and I really enjoyed it. I really got into Star Wars, and then you had stuff like Star Trek. You had one of my favorite sci-fi movies would be Interstellar, which came out in 2014, which I really enjoyed that one. I've always just been a fan of like, space and everything that could be out there, and because there's so many advancements that we have yet to make.
Yes.
That lay in space.
It's really fun, and it's funny when you talk about Star Wars because David, when I was talking to you a moment ago about how you look so much physically like the kid that Sarah Marifino and Ethan McDowell would have. It's funny because I was very thinking about Star Wars in that way because Mark Hamill really doesn't look much at all like the son of James Earl Jones, so so it's like, no, but they haven't, but again, and that was something with you as a little kid, Jacob. You didn't really need to look much like Bob Picardo. That was okay. I mean, you're just kind of but the main thing I wanted you to seem was sort of like plaintive, sort of like Oliver Twist or something. This poor little kid where you just go, oh man, he's being so screwed over, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
and you know, so much of that performance is just longing, you know. And then when we see you as a teenager and we see how angry you are and how you're what the scar tissue has done or what the experiences have done, it's really fun. I really love doing that. And so getting back to you, David. So again, it's funny because you and Jacob, both you really haven't had a chance to be on the set with these actors, and so I think that'll be very fun when the pandemic's over and we can actually do that. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, or because, you know, again, both of your characters have a lot to do, and you know, so I think, you know, we'll see where it all goes. But David, any other thoughts about now, or have you watched, now you've watched Space Command, so you see how it's evolved. Yeah. So if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I just want to piggyback off of what Jacob said, because it's just, I love how with sci-fi in general, there's so much creation happening, there's so much imagination happening, and it's so much fun to see the process of that story coming into play. I'd say, like, my favorite part about being an actor is just being a part of a bigger vision, is being a part, like being that puzzle piece, you know. And so it's beautiful to see such strong performances or such specific reactions and specific moments that are happening in a character's head that are only actually seen or understood in post or after post. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I love about acting, because you get to work with a green screen. I've done a couple different sci-fi things, and I've done some commercials with green screen. And so it's just been so much fun. The more I've been able to work, to be able to really, like, hone in on that focusing ability and that imagination to create a real response as an actor when there's not real environments. You know what I mean? The environments are very not real, but we're trying to enact, like, a really real response. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm with you, Jacob.
Yeah.
I love how it all comes together in sci-fi. And the
Well,
same way.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was also very unusual in Ripple Effect because we actually had to think about, okay, what background are we going to put these characters in? And with you, Jacob, it was so great. Was that a bathroom, or what the hell was that you were inside?
So it was perfect timing, because we were trying to find a space. Like, do we want to do a green screen? Do we want to find a spot? And what was funny was, like, right before coronavirus hit and we were in quarantine, we were working on renovating my parents' bathroom. And so it was in the middle of that. And because of that, like, everything was unfinished, and it was all, like, you know, the tile wasn't put in yet. We went in there like, this sort of looks like a bunker. And if it's done right, and which it was done perfectly
It was great.
And it was like, this would work. So I, like, went in the unfinished shower, and we recorded there, and it worked perfectly.
Yes. Well, it's so fun. You know, it was terrific. And then when we switch it to blue, that blue coloring to match the exterior, and then we go into that weird greenish tint with Barbara Bain. It's just like really locks it in. It really works. And you know, and so it was very fun. Or with yours, David, it was like, okay, putting it on that spaceship, and again, you know, and saying, okay, it's outside Jupiter. So, you know, we know, you know, so we see a little bit of Jupiter kind of like out of focus on the little monitor behind you. And that was great. And but the fun part also is, again, having all this stuff interlocked. So for instance, when in your scene, David, when you're talking about, I just watched the video of you talking about mom, you know, and telling me about mom. And earlier in the episode, we see him make that video, you know, and so, you know, again, it's this you know, call and response kind of thing. I really love that.
And everybody knows that family is so deep. I don't know, just family. I love that through line through it all. Like, this is his father's impartation to his son.
Yes.
It's like, when it comes around, I'm like, I feel that, you know what I mean? Family is just so huge. It's so important in their life.
Yeah. And it's that whole thing of, you know, grief and longing and loss and aspiration and ambition and hoping that you'll be, that your parents will be proud of you and all of that stuff, you know, that whole 9 yards. And it's just so fun. And, you know, so it's and as it continues, it's going to be very interesting to see how all these characters develop. You know, it's a big story, and deliberately so. But also it's really fun because I love, and I'm very grateful to both of you, because it's like it's pretty crazy to say, okay, it's the pandemic, we're all in lockdown, and want to make an episode, going into it not knowing if it's going to work, you know, but you just take a swing at it, you know, and that was really fun, you know. And so I don't know if you want to speak to this bizarre process. It's like, you know, like, hey, I've got a bathroom that can look like a bunker.
Well, what I will say is, it was so cool getting to be like, I'm doing a scene I'm doing a scene for a show in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, who gets to say like, oh yeah, during the little coronavirus, I was filming something. It's so cool, and it was a great opportunity.
Yeah, well, it was fun because it's like, because I have my own studio and because I have my own team on salary, and because my fans were able to finance us so we could keep everything going. You know, Dave Edison is full time, our wonderful editor. So it's like, okay. And the way I work with my team is I'll suggest something crazy like, hey, let's make an episode during the pandemic, and they'll initially say, well, you're out of your mind. That's impossible. And I just keep saying it until they fall into line. You know, it's like, you know, I just keep marching, and it works. And but it was really, really fun because I hold this whole epic story in my head. And so it wasn't, I mean, Elaine and I wrote that script very, very quickly. You know, I mean, from when it was just an initial notion to when it was a finished episode was like 2 months, which is, you know, very fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that was really, really fun. And, but I thought it was great to have you guys, because it expands the story. It expands where the story goes. You know, it's like an arrow pointing toward the future of the show. So I love that. And, you know, so, but also, again, there was that issue of filming with your own cameras. And so what was that like? Because that's certainly not what the actors usually used to. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
I think it gave me definitely a window into the world of post-production. And I think the more that I work as an actor, the more that I realize that my job is really not that important. Like everybody else is making it all happen, and I'm just the face, you know? Not to minimize what actors do. I think that actors are brilliant and amazing, but it really makes me realize just how many elements there are to make something happen, how many elements there are to make a show happen. And like Jacob said, it was just so much fun to be able to creatively work, to really like chew on some more material during a time that really felt like there was no material to chew on, and during a time where it felt like there was no auditions or like work had just stopped. It was so awesome to be able to continue to work, you know?
I know. And well, also that's one of the things that I very strongly wanted to impart and to do. One of the big reasons for doing this episode was to say, look, this is a time of opportunity, not just a bummer. You know, not just like, oh shit, we're all stuck at home. It was like, no, let's seize these limitations, and it worked spectacularly. I mean, we had this huge cast, and I mean, you know, in all of the different scenes, in the aggregate, and the age range on our actors in ripple effect. Just that one episode, our youngest actor was 9, and our oldest actor was 88. So that's pretty amazing. And so it was super fun. And but you know, so it was really cool. And as you saw, we used so many different techniques. We used an animatic for the scene with, you know, Yusuf and his dad, and then we used like visual effects. We used, I mean, every trick in the book, you know. And so, and then when Neil deGrasse Tyson emailed me and said, hey, if it's not too late, I'd love to play myself in Space Command. It's like, sure, you know. And you know, it's like really fun. So so Jacob, in terms of filming your scene with your own camera and all that stuff, what was that experience like?
So I think David hit it perfectly. There's so much that goes into making just making like one scene. You got to worry about lighting, sound, and the camera setup. I've had a little bit of experience working on that just because my sister, she's a musician, and she'll often do live streams. So cool. We'll have to set everything up for that. So I have a little bit of experience there. But yeah, it was fun trying to like find the right spot, and okay, is this good lighting, or no, it's not good. We got to go over here. Yeah. I mean, this would work. This would work. And everything set up.
That was fun, yeah, and it was really cool. I mean, one of the other realizations was everyone has a camera now. It might be a phone or it might be a computer, but everyone has some form of camera, and so that also allowed it. You know, we had the scenes were shot in L.A., upstate California, upstate New York, Portugal, Saskatchewan, Atlanta. You know, I mean, so like for instance, the scene with Brian McClure as the dad and that redheaded girl, Elizabeth Chamberlain, his daughter. That scene was shot in 2 different countries. So she was in Saskatchewan and he was in Atlanta, and then we put them together optically in the same room. You know, it's like, you know, and then of course the biggest trick was with Doug Jones and Bob Picardo, because Doug wasn't even in that scene at all. It was all ADR that we dropped into pre-existing shots of him and put in the scene with Bob. You know, so and matched the mouth. You know, so that was really fun. So So I mean, it's interesting because you've been along on this project, Jacob, for a long time. You've been here for, I guess, what, 6 years, and so basically your childhood has been, watching this project come to fruition. So what's that been like?
Well, I would say it's cool, and I think I've learned more about it as I've grown. Like when I was first joined, I was like 9 or I was 10,
Yeah,
and so like getting to see that, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. It's cool getting to see myself as a hologram. And then like as the years went by, I looked back and I was like, this is. I mean, it's still going, it's still growing, and it's growing it even more. I think, and one thing I was talking about with my parents the other day was that there's so many characters in this, and there's so many ways that this can be taken.
yeah.
It's such a diverse group of characters. There's so many storylines you can follow, and I just think it's great because of that.
Yeah, well, thanks. And David, so as you know, your character will be both of your characters continue, and but with David's character, I mean, at least with Odin, we've gotten to see, you know, a lot of sort of like what's making him who he is. With David, this is the scene that introduces you in the show, but then in Great Solar World, we'll see you do a lot more. I mean, it's going to be pretty fun. You'll be in space battles and stuff, and wearing spacesuits and all of that stuff, and interacting with aliens. And I mean, we're building 8-foot tall aliens right now. I mean, yeah, hang on, I'll show you what the head looks like. Hang on one second, hold the thought.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I'm ready to see what this looks like.
This is the head
Oh wow.
of the Pisara. So that's the concept head,
So
and
awesome.
so they're 8 feet tall, and so it's pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
So cool.
so I guess so in conclusion, so for both of you, is there anything else you'd like to say to the fans or say about this experience, or looking forward to what's coming down the pike? Just anything you'd like to say. I'd love to hear it.
I'd just say thank you. I'd say this is just such an awesome, fun opportunity, and it's so beautiful how you and Elaine just are so dedicated to the story, and you make it happen. And it's just beautiful to be a part of that. So thank you. You make everything happen, Mark.
Well, thank you, David, and Jacob. Anything you'd like to say?
Well, yeah, I completely agree. This was so fun to actually to do and have this opportunity. It's a blessing, and I don't know what else to say. I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, well, the fun part is, I think you guys know that I come out of the studio world, and so the studio and the network world. So for 20 plus years, I was working at Paramount and all the major studios, and the challenge with that, I mean, the good part is, of course, they pay you a ton of money, and you have like hundreds of people, making something in your head, that millions of people can see. The downside of it, though, is that you're constantly asking approval. So with Space Command, because we have our own studio and because our fans are paying for all of this, I don't have to ask permission from anybody. So it's like, oh, let's put Jacob in this. He's older now. He's a teenager. We're going to be really fucked over and angry. And then it's like, oh, well, here's this waiter, and he can act, and he looks exactly like he'd be their kid. So we'll put him in. And it's like, I don't have to ask if some network executive who wants me to put in an actor who can't act. It's like, I can actually make something good. And, not that I couldn't when I was with the studio, but it's a bigger infrastructure. It's like trying to turn the Titanic, it moves slow. And but we don't have that problem. So it's a thrill to work with both of you. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to many more adventures. And we'll put you in a mustache or something, and Jacob, and
I'll start growing it now.
Exactly. And but it's going to be super fun. It's going to be super fun, and we're here for you. And one thing to mention is with Ripple Effect, it's absolutely fine. Dave Edison can get you guys high quality copies, and it's fine to use your footage for your reels or for whatever you need it for. It's absolutely 100% fine. And we're here for you guys at any point, and happy to recommend you anywhere. So, if you're up for a job on a show or whatever, if I know the person running it, I'm happy to say, no, they're great to work with and talented and all that stuff. So, so never hesitate to ask those things. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again. I really love talking with you. I love working with you, and more adventures ahead. And thanks for being in Ripple Effect, and we'll talk again real soon.